I still remember the sound. The crack of the laptop hitting the hardwood floor, the shattering of my grandmother's porcelain vase that had survived 3 generations. But what I remember most is Jake's voice, twisted into something I didn't recognize, screaming at me like I was his enemy. "How dare you be so selfish? Amy is my daughter, and if you really loved me, you'd help her." All because I refused to write a check for $2,500 to his ex-wife for a private school that his daughter didn't even attend. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because this story isn't just about that moment. It's about how I went from being a successful, independent woman to almost losing everything I'd worked for, and how I finally found the strength to take it all back. My name is Maya Chen, and I'm 32 years old. I work as a marketing director at a tech company in Seattle, and I'm good at what I do, really good. I pull in about $120,000 a year, and I own my home outright. Well, technically, I inherited it from my grandmother 3 years ago. It's a beautiful 3-bedroom townhouse in Capitol Hill, completely renovated, worth about $450,000. My grandmother raised me after my parents passed away when I was 12, and that house represented everything she'd worked for her entire life. It was my safe place, my foundation. I met Jake at my friend Sarah's wedding about 2 years ago. He was the best man, charming and funny in his toast, and we got to talking at the reception. Jake Miller was 35, worked in sales, and made decent money, around $65,000 a year. But what really drew me to him wasn't the money. It was how attentive he was, how he actually listened when I talked about my work, my dreams, my grandmother. He seemed different from the other guys I'd dated. He had depth, or so I thought. Jake had a daughter from his previous marriage. Amy was 10 years old, sweet and a little shy. I met her about 4 months into our relationship, and honestly, I fell in love with her almost as fast as I fell for Jake. She loved drawing, and I'd buy her art supplies. We'd spend Sunday afternoons at the kitchen table, her sketching while I worked on presentations for Monday meetings. She never made me feel like an intruder in her life. If anything, she seemed hungry for female attention. After a 1.5 years of dating, Jake proposed. We were at Alki Beach, watching the sunset over the Sound, and he got down on one knee. I said yes, without hesitation. I thought I'd found my person, my family. The wedding was small, just close friends and family at a little venue in Woodinville. It was perfect. I was happy. That happiness lasted about 6 weeks. A 1.5 months after the wedding, Jake and I were having coffee on a Sunday morning when he casually said, "So, I've been thinking. Amy's bedroom at her mom's place is getting kind of cramped. What would you think about her moving into the spare bedroom here? We have the space." I looked up from my laptop. Move in full-time? What about the custody agreement? Well, we'd adjust it. Maybe she stays with Rachel every other weekend instead. This place is so much nicer, and Amy loves it here. Plus, she'd be closer to her school. Something about the way he said it so casually, like it was already decided, made me pause. But I loved Amy, and I wanted to be supportive. "Okay, let's talk to Rachel about it and see what she thinks." Jake smiled and kissed my forehead. "You're amazing. And hey, speaking of finances, I was thinking we should set up a joint account. You know, for household expenses and Amy's needs. It would make things simpler." There it was. The first red flag I should have paid attention to. But I was in love, and I wanted this marriage to work. I told myself I was being paranoid, that this was normal couple stuff. 2 weeks later, I got my first text message from Rachel, Jake's ex-wife. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed. "Hi, Maya. Jake mentioned you're willing to help with Amy's expenses. That's so generous. Could you Venmo me $500 for her therapy sessions? Insurance doesn't cover it all." I stared at the message, confused. When had I agreed to this? I texted Jake. "Did you tell Rachel I'd pay for Amy's therapy?" His response came quickly. "She's struggling financially, babe. I thought we could help. It's for Amy." I sat there in the conference room, my colleagues talking about Q3 projections, and felt my stomach twist. But therapy for a child seemed legitimate. I sent the money. The next month, another text from Rachel. "Hey, Amy needs new shoes for basketball and some supplies for her art class. Could you send $800? Jake said it wouldn't be a problem. This time, I confronted Jake at home. Why is your ex-wife texting me directly for money? And why does she think I'm an ATM? He put his hands up defensively. She's not thinking that. Amy legitimately needs these things, and Rachel's between jobs right now. I make enough to cover my child support, but extras are tough. I thought since you make more than me, and you love Amy. Of course I love Amy. But this feels weird, Jake. Like you promised her something without talking to me first. I didn't promise anything, he said, his voice getting tight. I just mentioned that we were doing well financially. Is it wrong to want to help my daughter? The guilt hit me like a wave. Was I being selfish? Was I making this about money when a child's needs were at stake? I sent the $800. My best friend Jennifer came over for wine that Friday night. I told her everything, and she put down her glass, her face serious. Maya, this is a red flag the size of Texas. He's using Amy to manipulate you. And why is his ex texting you directly? That's so inappropriate. She's just asking for help for Amy. Then Jake should be handling it through the proper channels. This is boundary violation 101. Jen grabbed my hand. Document everything. Every text, every Venmo. I have a bad feeling about this. I laughed it off, but I started a spreadsheet anyway. Just in case, 3 months into the marriage, Rachel started showing up at my house. The first time, I came home from work to find her in my living room, going through my bookshelf. Jake was in the kitchen making coffee. "Oh, hi, Maya," Rachel said brightly, as if this was completely normal. Jake gave me a key so I could pick up some of Amy's things. "I hope that's okay?" I looked at Jake, waiting for him to explain. He just shrugged. "Amy left some stuff here. It's easier if Rachel has a key." After Rachel left, I told Jake this was not okay. This was my house, the one my grandmother left me, and I didn't want people just walking in whenever they felt like it. People? Jake's face darkened. She's not people, Maya. She's Amy's mother. God, I thought you were more understanding than this. I ended up apologizing, even though every instinct told me I shouldn't, but I didn't change the locks. That was my first big mistake. The 4th month, Rachel's requests escalated. She wanted $1,000 for special tutoring for Amy, then $1,500 for a laptop for schoolwork. Each time, Jake would defend the requests, saying things like, "Don't you want Amy to succeed? And I thought you cared about her education." I was at my desk at work one afternoon when my mom called from Arizona. She and I talk every week, and I'd been vague about the money situation because I felt ashamed. "Sweetheart, you sound tired. Is everything okay?" And I just broke down. I told her everything. The money, the boundary violations, the guilt trips. My mom was quiet for a long moment. "Maya, honey, you know what your grandmother would say? She'd say that love doesn't keep a ledger, but it also doesn't let itself be used. You need to protect what she worked her whole life to give you." After we hung up, I sat at my desk and looked at my spreadsheet. In 4 months, I'd given Rachel $8,000. $8,000 for a child who already had everything she needed. That night, I told Jake we needed to talk about boundaries. I suggested that all financial requests go through the formal child support system, not through random texts to me. Jake exploded. "You're trying to control how I parent my daughter. This is exactly what Rachel said you'd do. She said you'd try to come between me and Amy." "Wait, what? You've been talking to Rachel about our marriage?" "She's the mother of my child. Of course we talk. And honestly, Maya, she's worried about how cold you've become toward Amy. The poor kid notices these things." That hit me like a punch. Cold toward Amy? I loved that little girl. I spent every weekend with her, helped with her homework, took her to the art museum. How dare he twist this into me being the bad guy? But Jake knew exactly what he was doing. He was gaslighting me, and it was working. The breaking point came at my birthday party. I'd invited close friends and family to the townhouse for dinner. My mom flew up from Arizona, Jen was there with her husband, some colleagues from work. It was supposed to be a celebration. Rachel showed up uninvited. "Jake told me about the party," she said, breezing in with Amy. "I brought wine." I pulled Jake aside in the kitchen. "Why is your ex-wife at my birthday party?" Amy wanted to come, and I couldn't exactly tell Rachel to stay home. That would be rude. Rude? It's my birthday party in my house. There you go again with my house. We're married, Maya. When are you going to accept that this is our life, not just yours? I went to the bathroom and cried for 10 minutes, trying to compose myself. When I came back out, Rachel was showing my work colleagues pictures on her phone. Oh, this is from our family vacation last year. Before Jake met Maya, we took Amy to Disney World. We had such a great time. Our family vacation. As if they were still a unit, and I was the outsider. The next Monday, I made an appointment with a therapist. Her name was Dr. Patricia Liu, and in our first session, I laid out everything that had been happening. She listened carefully, taking notes. Maya, what you're describing is called financial abuse and emotional manipulation, she said. Jake is using his daughter as a weapon to extract money and control from you, and Rachel is complicit. This is a pattern. But what if I'm just being selfish? What if I really am cold toward Amy? Do you love Amy? Of course I do. Then you're not cold. You're having healthy boundaries violated, and they're making you feel guilty for protecting yourself. That's textbook gaslighting. I started seeing Dr. Liu weekly. She encouraged me to start documenting everything, not just the money, but the conversations, the guilt trips, the boundary violations. I began voice recording our arguments on my phone. I screenshotted every text from Rachel. 6 months into the marriage, Rachel texted me with the big ask. Hi Maya, great news. We found an amazing private school for Amy. It's focused on the arts, and you know how much she loves drawing. It's $2,500 a month. Jake said you'd be happy to contribute since you don't have kids of your own to spend money on. Can you start this month? I stared at that text for a long time. $2,500 a month, $30,000 a year, for a private school. I pulled up the school district website. Amy was already attending View Ridge Elementary, one of the best public schools in Seattle, with a 9/10 rating and an excellent arts program. She loved her school. She loved her teacher. She'd mentioned none of this. I called Amy's school and confirmed she was enrolled for the next year. No transfer paperwork had been filed. I texted Rachel back. Which private school? I'd like to visit before we commit. Her response was vague. Still finalizing the options. But we need to secure the spot soon. That evening, I told Jake about the text. Your ex is asking for $2,500 a month for a private school that doesn't seem to exist, and Amy's already enrolled at View Ridge for next year. Jake's face went red. How dare you call the school to check on my daughter? That's invasion of privacy. I'm protecting us from fraud, Jake. Something doesn't add up here. The only thing that doesn't add up is how selfish you've become. Amy is my daughter, and if Rachel thinks she needs a better school, then she probably does. You don't even have kids. You have no idea what it's like to want the best for your child. Then you pay for it. You're her father. Use your salary. My salary? He laughed bitterly. My salary goes to child support and my car and basic expenses. You're the one with the big fancy house and the big fancy job. Don't you think you should contribute to this family? I've contributed $8,000 in 6 months. Oh, so you're keeping track? You're actually counting every penny you spend on my daughter? What kind of stepmother does that? I felt my chest tighten, the kind who pays attention when something feels wrong. That's when Jake got in my face, his voice low and dangerous. You need to sign over half this house to me. It's only fair. We're married. Or do you not actually trust me? I stepped back. This house was my grandmother's. It's mine. Yours, he spat. Everything is always yours. Your house, your money, your career. When do I get to matter? When does my daughter get to matter? The next day I called my lawyer. His name was Robert Chang, and he'd handled my grandmother's estate. I laid out everything. The money requests, the house pressure, the manipulation. Maya, you need to protect your assets, he said. This marriage sounds financially dangerous. I want you to consider a post-nuptial agreement, or at minimum, documenting everything for a potential divorce. The word divorce hit me like cold water. I'd only been married 7 months, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something much bigger was at play here. I started digging. I pulled credit reports, checked public records, looked into Jake and Rachel's financial history. What I found made my blood run cold. Jake and Rachel had never fully separated their finances. They still had a joint bank account. They'd filed taxes jointly the year before Jake and I got married, claiming a deduction for mortgage interest on a property I'd never heard of. There were credit cards in both their names, opened recently. They were still financially entangled, and they'd been planning something. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus, ex-cop, and he worked fast. Within 2 weeks, he had evidence that Rachel and Jake had been looking at houses together. Not for Amy, for them. 3-bedroom houses in Bellevue, right near the good school district. The plan became crystal clear. Drain my savings, get me to sign over half the townhouse, then divorce me, and use my money to set themselves up in a new house for Amy's sake. I'd been a mark from the beginning. I felt sick. I felt stupid. But mostly, I felt angry. My birthday dinner had been in October. By January, I had a plan of my own. I told Jake I'd think about the private school money. I needed to review my budget. This bought me time. I emptied our joint account and put the money into a separate account in my name only. I changed the locks on the townhouse while Jake was at work and mailed him a new key with a note. Until we resolve our financial discussions, Rachel no longer has access to my home. Jake came home that evening and tried his key. When it didn't work, he started pounding on the door. I let him in, staying calm. "What the hell is this?" He waved the key. "I changed the locks. Rachel doesn't get to walk into my house whenever she wants anymore." "You can't do this. This is my home." "No, Jake. It's my house. We've been over this." That's when Rachel called. Jake put her on speaker, and her voice was syrupy sweet, but with an edge. "Maya, honey, Jake tells me you're having some concerns about helping Amy. Can we talk about this like adults?" "Sure," I said. "Let's talk about the house you and Jake have been looking at in Bellevue, the one you're planning to buy with my money." Silence. Then Rachel's voice, no longer sweet. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Because I have emails. I have bank records. I have photos of you two at open houses. What I want to know is how long you've been planning this. From the beginning, or did the idea come after you saw my house?" Jake's face went white. "You've been spying on us?" "No, I've been protecting myself." "There's a difference." Rachel hung up. Jake stood there, breathing hard, his hands opening and closing into fists. "You have no idea what you've done," he said quietly. "You've just destroyed this family." "There was no family, Jake. There was a scam, and I'm not falling for it anymore. You're going to regret this, Maya. I'm Amy's father. You think a judge is going to side with you over me? I guess we'll find out." That's when he picked up my laptop from the coffee table and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and crashed to the floor, screen shattered. Then he grabbed my grandmother's vase from the mantel, the one painted with cherry blossoms that she'd brought from Taiwan. "Jake, don't." He smashed it on the hardwood floor. I stood there, looking at the broken pieces of my grandmother's vase, and something inside me went very calm and very cold. I pulled out my phone and called 911. "I need police at 1847 15th Avenue East. My husband just destroyed my property and I'm afraid for my safety." Jake's eyes went wide. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done months ago." The police arrived within 10 minutes. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female. I showed them the destroyed laptop, the shattered vase, and I played them the recording I'd made of Jake's threat. "You're going to regret this." The female officer took notes while the male officer talked to Jake outside. "Ma'am, has he ever been physically violent with you?" she asked. "Not with me. But he gets in my face, raises his voice, tries to intimidate me. That's domestic violence. You can file for a protection order." I did. That night, Jake was asked to leave the property. I filed for divorce the next morning. The next 3 months were a blur of lawyers, depositions, and court dates. Jake tried to claim that the townhouse was marital property and he deserved half. My lawyer, Robert, destroyed that argument with the paper trail. The house was inherited, never refinanced, never had Jake's name added to the title. Rachel tried to claim I owed her for caretaking of Amy during our marriage. Marcus, my investigator, provided evidence of her actual income, which was substantially higher than she'd claimed, and proof of her luxury purchases while claiming poverty. The judge was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, named Judge Martha Brennan. She reviewed all the evidence, The bank records showing Jake and Rachel's joint account, the emails about house hunting, the pattern of financial requests, the photos of the destroyed laptop and vase, and the recording of Jake's threats. "Mr. Miller," she said, looking at Jake over her reading glasses, "it appears you entered this marriage under false pretenses with the intent to financially exploit Miss Chen. You and your ex-wife maintained inappropriate financial entanglement while married to Miss Chen, and you attempted to coerce her into surrendering her premarital assets." Jake's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Brennan held up her hand. "I'm granting Miss Chen's divorce petition. The townhouse remains solely her property. Furthermore, Mr. Miller, you will reimburse Miss Chen for the $8,000 she contributed to your daughter's expenses, as evidence shows these requests were fraudulent. You will also pay for the damaged property, the laptop and the family heirloom you destroyed." In the end, Jake had to pay me back $12,000. The divorce was final within 6 months of my filing. But there was one more twist I didn't see coming. 2 months after the divorce, I got a call from Rachel. My first instinct was to hang up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Maya, it's Rachel. Please don't hang up." "What do you want?" I need to tell you something. About Amy." My heart dropped. "Is she okay?" "She's fine. But she wants to talk to you. She's been asking about you constantly. She misses you." I felt tears prick my eyes. I'd missed Amy too, desperately, but I'd assumed Jake would poison her against me. "Why are you telling me this?" "Rachel Seahill. Because Jake and I aren't together. We never got back together. The whole thing was his idea, Maya. The house hunting, the money scheme. I went along with it because he promised me we'd be a family again. But after the divorce, he just disappeared. He moved to California for some job. He barely sees Amy anymore." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. That must be hard for her. It is. "And I'm sorry, Maya. For my part in all of this, you were good to Amy, better than I gave you credit for. Would you be willing to see her? Maybe for lunch or something?" I met Amy the following Saturday at a cafe in Ballard. She ran up and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "I missed you so much," she whispered. "I missed you too, sweetheart." We spent 2 hours together, and she told me about school, about her art projects, about how her dad had moved away. At the end, she looked at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Can we do this again? Can you still be my friend?" Of course I can. Rachel and I worked out an agreement. Every other Saturday, I'd take Amy for the day. We'd go to museums, work on art projects, just hang out. Rachel was actually decent about it. And over time, we developed a cordial relationship. Not friendship, but mutual respect. About a year after the divorce, I started dating again. His name is David. He's an architect, and on our 3rd date, I told him the whole story. I expected him to run for the hills. Instead, he said, "So you're smart, successful, and you don't put up with bullshit? That's exactly what I'm looking for." We've been together for 8 months now, and he's met Amy. They get along great. He never tries to replace her dad, but he treats her with kindness and respect. He treats me with kindness and respect. That's the difference between a real partner and a con artist. I still live in my grandmother's townhouse. I still have my job, my independence, my life that I built. I didn't lose myself in that marriage, even though Jake and Rachel tried their hardest to take everything from me. I learned that loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself. I learned that real family respects boundaries. I learned that my grandmother was right. Love doesn't keep a ledger, but it also doesn't let itself be used. And I learned that sometimes the family you choose, like Amy, is more real than the one that's supposed to be yours by marriage. Today, I'm 33 years old. I'm happy, I'm safe, and I'm surrounded by people who genuinely love me, not what they can take from me. Jake tried to destroy me, but all he did was make me stronger. I stood up, I fought back, and I won. And you know what? My grandmother would be proud.